What's up, guys? Kevin Cage here with another crypto update. Let's dive into some recent news because this just came out. The rumors were true. For CasperLabs, this is rebranded as ProveAI, and ProveAI will be launching exclusively on Hedera. So I'm going to read a little bit of this article verbatim and then we're going to rant about it. So ProveAI, formerly known as CasperLabs and the creators of the ProveAI product, today announced a partnership to build their product exclusively on Hedera. Hedera will support the go-to-market of ProveAI's governance AI product via a grants and marketing support focused solely on the enterprise. So am I frustrated with this? Absolutely, but I'm trying to look for some good that can come out of this. So for example, the good thing is at least this is launching exclusively on Hedera. I would have been a lot more frustrated if ProveAI just disappeared or was sold to IBM or some private network, or was even used just exclusively with Hyperledger with no guarantee of being used by a public DLT network like Hedera. So at least that's good and it's not using some random private chain. Now, am I surprised? A little bit, but I was less and less surprised as time passed on. I would have been surprised if this news came out months ago, because when we've listened to the CEO of CasperLabs, Renal, who is now head of ProveAI, I believe, he's always been so dead set on ProveAI being on Casper Network, and we can see that he quickly changed his mind. And of course, it makes sense now after we've gone over the IBM Tech Exchange, seeing that they removed CasperLabs completely, and they already rebranded to ProveAI well in advance. And now in hindsight, of course it makes sense with the rumors of CasperLabs or CasperLabs executives dumping their tokens. So I'd be curious for anybody that tracks the top 50, top 200 Casper wallets to see how much Casper has actually been sold off. And if that were the case, that would also help explain the price chart of Casper creating such a deep spring here. And I feel like I've listened to almost every single video of Renal online. I believe he was an early investor in Hedera. He was a top holder of Ethereum, but he's also critiqued Hedera's governance and just said that there are better ways to do things, highlighting Casper, but apparently he doesn't really believe in Casper that much. And I don't know the exact liquidity of CasperLabs, a private company, which is now ProveAI, but it seems that they were hurting for working capital as well. So we have shared by Charles Atkins, he's the president over at Hedera, excited to announce that ProveAI, formerly CasperLabs, is now building its AI governance platform exclusively on Hedera. So this is a grant, so we're going to keep tabs on this. It also makes sense because Hedera has been emphasizing that they're really getting into the AI space, considering other things like Equity Labs, basically a framework for AI integrity. We can see in this Hedera blog, ProveAI CEO Renal. So he was a huge holder of Casper. I question, does he still hold Casper today? Did he dump tokens? I'm not sure. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of mixed emotions out there. I know that I have a lot of mixed emotions, and this isn't a topic that's particularly fun for me to discuss by any means, and I am just speculating just like anybody. I have limited information, and we all have our different opinions. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Casper Network is dead. I know this is one application, but this is an application I wanted to see launch, and now I'm really questioning things regarding other applications like Actus. So as far as I know, like I shared in the previous video, Actus, the framework, has been worked on with chains like Ethereum, ADA, Casper, and I'm questioning now, will Hedera get involved with the Actus framework for the tokenization of smart contracts? So yes, I am frustrated with CasperLabs, which is now rebranded as ProveAI. I'm still rooting for Casper Network, and I'm rooting for all the work that the Casper Association is doing. And now I'm hoping that ProveAI is still successful on Hedera and drives demand toward the actual token and gets some good adoption with new customers. So sentiment in the Casper community is low, and rightfully so. I would still like to see some applications come out of this and rise from the ashes. There's going to be a lot of speculation on the Casper price chart. If it does nothing or goes to a lower price, there's still going to be investors speculating on it if it gets to a really low market cap for any type of retracement. So I'm doing my best today not to write any angry tweets at CasperLabs. I'm rooting for the Casper Association. They have been transparent, at least when I've spoken with Michael, who's the CTO. I know that they're working hard, but yeah, I'm very frustrated. I'm also frustrated with myself. I know I talked about that in yesterday's video. And one quote that I like that I think is applicable today is, "Success is not final and failure is not fatal." So I'm going to keep moving forward without any loss of enthusiasm. And if anybody ever meets Renal in person and would like to give him a buzz cut, I'd really appreciate it. I've heard so many different things, both good and bad, and I don't know what to believe. So I'm definitely still going to be rooting for Casper, OG assets like XRP, HBAR, Algo, even some other lower caps or micro caps that have never really seen a true bull run, like Velo, Check, Wi-Fi, Crest when Peak Network is live, even speculative plays like Cubic. Mid caps and higher caps, of course, small tau position rooting for Fetch AI, which is essentially ASI now. Other chains like SNX for synthetic derivatives and building on Base, and other projects that are building on Base too. API 3, and then of course Hashpack built on Hedera, but we need to see HBAR retrace to see the full potential of other HTS tokens. And of course, more conservative investors are placing bigger bets on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Maybe other well-established projects like AVAX and Polkadot, but there's plenty of new projects, and I'm really interested in newer projects, specifically if and when we get Bitcoin's first major move or the start of alt season where Bitcoin dominance crashes. Others might like the high development activity of other mid and high caps like ICP, Stellar and their work with MasterCard. We know that Stellar XLM historically has moved with XRP as well. And the only two times in history where we saw XRP really rise were during the previous two alt seasons when Bitcoin runs first and we had the crash of Bitcoin dominance. So will the future be different? I'm not sure, but that's personally what I expect. And I know it's a lot of speculation, and it doesn't mean that my opinion is right. I'm just looking at the historical data, looking at the cycles, measuring loosely on the monthly, which I know takes no skill. It's a lot harder to really predict actual moves on the 4-hour or the daily. This is just a blanket big picture overview on why I'm waiting for another bull run. And I've also shared, I don't really know what happens next. I'm waiting for the first major move. I don't know if Bitcoin comes back down to the trend line at another low. I just don't want to see a full monthly candle body below the 8-month EMA. Historically, that's very important to keep full monthly candle bodies above this orange moving average, specifically after the Bitcoin halvings as we get closer to elections. And my big overall view is price action after elections every 4 years. So we can see expansion, bull run. So major move up until cycle top. After elections, bull run. After elections, bull run. We have elections coming up next month. So that is my boring macro view on the monthly time frame. I'm not going to be saying, oh, I'm right. I just want to see another bull run in another cycle where crypto runs. If you disagree, all good. I'll get a lot more specific if and only if I see that first major move for Bitcoin, because once we get that first large full monthly candle, historically, Bitcoin's running for 200 to 300 days. So then alts rise. Historically, even alts can run a couple months after Bitcoin finds its cycle top. So that's what I'm looking for if history is going to rhyme in the future for another bull run. If and when we see that move for Bitcoin or even Bitcoin dominance, then I'll try to get a lot more specific in trying to be gauging actual moves on smaller time frames for different assets. But I want to see this actual break so assets really stop ranging in a trendless market. We're liquid today. I want to see some positive price action. And I'm just not 100% convinced until we see actual confirmation from Bitcoin or the first large crash of Bitcoin dominance. I also saw this interesting thread by Jake Claver discussing Ripple and an IPO, and this reminds me of the quote from David Schwartz, Ripple CTO, saying something along the lines before of naming 4 companies and the 4 elements. So please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he said something like Google equals earth, Apple equals air, Amazon equals fire, and Ripple equals water. So this is a really good thread going over the Ripple IPO, and there's been video clips of Brad Garlinghouse, I believe, even recently saying that they don't really have plans to do a public offering in the United States, and they're looking elsewhere, so I wonder if that could change in the future, but overall, I could absolutely see Ripple the company going public at some point. The question is, where? So let me skim through this really quick. Highly recommend reading this thread if you have time, discussing and drawing parallels like Amazon's IPO in 1997. Ripple might do the same with a huge impact. So number 1, Ripple's already a huge player serving hundreds of customers, valued over $10 billion. I haven't seen a recent company valuation, but I'm certain it's over that. Discussing Amazon, known as the online bookstore before its IPO, once they went public, they raised money. We can see raised $54 million. I would imagine that Ripple raises even more in today's space. And because of that, with those funds and that additional liquidity, they can quickly expand into other verticals. So just like Jake says, expanding from books into electronics, clothing, eventually just taking over the entire e-commerce space, getting into cloud, and so much more. So the same thing applies to Ripple getting into custody with the acquisition of Medico under Ripple Custody, compliance, stablecoins, expanding payment use cases, getting into DeFi and increasing TVL, which opens the doors to new use cases like lending. I know there's been that application, I forget what it's called. I forget if it's called Credify. I did a video going over it quickly, but there's so many other new applications, even AI use cases. I also don't necessarily buy the use cases for climate change and tokenization of carbon credits, but I just see this as a narrative, and if companies are being forced to due to ESG compliance, it's just another narrative, another way to capture liquidity. So going over Ripple, going public could result in several significant outcomes. Just think a bunch of liquidity. We could see entering new markets like tokenized securities, real-world assets, and DeFi applications. And a great point right here, Ripple could use IPO funds to acquire other companies and expand its offerings, similar to Amazon's acquisitions of Whole Foods and Twitch. We can see right here, Ripple could opt for a direct listing because it already has a strong balance sheet with over $1.3 billion in cash. And Jake says, going public is not just about raising capital, it's about legitimacy. Amazon's IPO legitimized e-commerce. For Ripple, a public listing would legitimize its role in global finance, signaling to banks and regulators that it's here to stay. It also adhered to a stricter set of regulations, and potentially be able to be used by more institutions, banks, and FIs. So really good points in here. The question is, will Ripple go public? I believe they do in the future. I just don't know if they're able to go public in the United States. I hope they do. And just looking at the monthly Amazon price chart around the time when they did their IPO, and this might not be the best example because we have to understand this is the biggest success case that we've basically ever seen for a business, but just to paint a picture of getting liquidity, expanding its ecosystem, and really growing over the decades ahead. Now, Ripple's valuation is likely higher than what Amazon was, but at the same time, Ripple has XRP on its balance sheet. So, Bitcoin runs, or XRP creates an all-time price. It's more liquid, it's used by more businesses. Ripple's valuation could also reach significantly higher. So I know this is speculation, but there are a bunch of reasons why I personally hold XRP. Even through the boring years, there's a bunch of reasons why I have exposure to crypto, and I love these videos by notfinancialadvice.crypto, listing all of the connections that Ripple the company has, that the XRP ledger has, etc. So even if I stopped doing YouTube videos, I would still be holding XRP. And does it mean I'm right? No, not necessarily, but I don't mind holding high caps like XRP that have been in the top 10 for over 10 plus years. I still hold mid caps, I still speculate on micro caps. There's no right way, but this is just my personal preference. And I know that crypto is one of the hardest markets in the world, but I'm just not interested in relying on the yields of bonds or going all in on the stock market or the real estate market. I should be more diversified, but I am very heavy in the crypto asset class. I should probably focus more on what a lot of VC guys do and just owning the picks and shovels or owning the actual Web3 companies, since they have more demand and they're typically less volatile than a lot of these crypto assets. But in the success case of any big wins, which I've experienced in previous bull runs, that keeps me here. Is just another degenerate gambler that's waiting and betting on better price action future bull runs. Anyways, guys, we'll dive into more recent news in the next video. I guess I'm just trying to get a better grasp of the Ripple versus SEC case, the appeals, the forms that have to be filed. Once I get a better understanding, I'll try to read through it. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button and sharing your thoughts down below. As always, you can find all links, including resources for charting, trading bots, platforms, wallets, portfolio trackers, and exclusive discounts in my link tree at the top of the video description. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.